have way more experience with both mites and lice and probably worms than I care to admit. I'm not sure, maybe it's a Florida thing, but honestly, I am under the assumption that every bird at some point in its life will have some sort of parasite infestation, regardless of how good your animal husbandry skills are. Most recently, I had some chicks that I moved from like an indoor brooder. They had never even been outside into like a little plastic tote outside because I had to treat one for something specifically. And they were out in this plastic tote outside for about a week. And then when I went to take them out of the plastic tote to put them like on the dirt in like an outdoor pen by themselves, I noticed bugs on them. They had gotten lice from being outside for a week in a plastic tote on my back porch. And they're for sure lice. Like, I know what lice look like. Another time years ago, I had taken in my first silkies. I traded some hatching eggs for some silkies. And when I got them here, they had scaly leg mites that were so bad that some of them were missing toes, because that's what happens with the progression of scaly leg mites. Chickens can lose toes. And if I'm being really honest, I hate to admit this, but I've been battling mites on my farm for like a good solid year. And kind of the way it always looks is like most of my chickens will have no symptoms, and then there'll be like one or two who are infested. Let me start by saying, I'm already talking, but I do have some more in-depth videos about each of these in my chicken health playlist, so you can go check out those videos too if you want. But just to do kind of like a blanket overview of mites, lice, and really internal parasites too, I'm going to tell you what my go-to treatment is for now. And again, these things are just part of raising birds. And I'll tell you, when it comes to internal parasites, intestinal worms, it's actually been my free-range birds that have had the worst problems with intestinal parasites, because they're just like rooting around in shit everywhere. And not to like peak your fear meter, but internal parasites, stomach worms, if they get bad enough in our birds, they can make their way to the intestinal tract, and we can see worms in our eggs. It's rare, but not impossible. And then, of course, one of the risks with both lice and mites are vitamin deficiencies in our birds, compromised immune systems, secondary illnesses and infections. By the time we have full-blown infestations of these things, we're noticing that our feathers are missing birds, scabbing, poopy butts, the scales are lifting up on their feet. We see lice eggs on them. That, in my opinion, is beyond the point of herbal remedies to fix the problem. At that point, diatomaceous earth is not going to remedy the problem quick enough. The same thing goes for garlic, apple cider vinegar, pumpkin in the water and feed and stuff. All of those things are reasonable preventatives, but they are not going to get rid of an infestation at that level fast enough before we may start to see death or other potential issues in our birds. Just my opinion and experience, but I do have some experience. For a couple years, I was using Electra PSP to treat both lice and mites, and it is a really good product. It's actually an organic gardening product as well, and the active ingredient is this stuff called spinosad, which is also used in certain dewormers for dogs. So it's a very safe product. There's also no egg withdrawal time, and it's a one-time treatment. It kills both live mites and lice as well as their eggs. It does not treat for internal parasites, however, only external parasites, but it is a really great product. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And it'll last you a long time, because I think the bottle comes with like 244, I don't know, I'm making that up, but like a bunch of milliliters in it, and you only need 9 milliliters per gallon of water to treat, and you just spray the bird really well. Some people will mix a couple gallons and dip the birds in it. You want to make sure that no matter what you do, that you're getting underneath the feathers on the skin of the bird really well, under the wings, around the vent, around the neck. And also, you want to clean out the coop, burn any bedding, and make sure you spray really well around the coop. You can use the same Electra PSP solution on your birds and in the coop. There are different types of lice and mites, and they live in different places. Some of them live their entire life cycle on the bird. Some of them like to burrow around the coop and hide in wooded areas. No matter what, it's my suggestion, if you're dealing with those parasites, to just clean the coop out and spray everything down. This year, however, I have switched to using ivermectin poron for cattle, because it treats for lice, mites, scaly leg mites, as well as intestinal parasites. And so it's nice to just do one treatment for all of those things. The downside, egg withdrawal time, like information on the internet, is kind of spotty. In general, it seems like about 14 days. And so when I say egg withdrawal, I mean during that time period, it's suggested that you don't eat the eggs, you don't consume the eggs, because we don't know how much of that product is passing through the oviduct and into the eggs, and how much we're taking in by eating the eggs. My family will still eat them, honestly, but we don't give them to anybody outside of the household, and use at your own risk. Using ivermectin poron, period, is an off-label label use for chickens, but scroll any chicken keeping forum and many of us swear by this product to treat mice, lice, scaly leg mites, internal parasites. Ivermectin only kills live parasites, so it requires an additional treatment 10 days after the initial treatment to get any eggs that may have hatched in the meantime. When I treat my birds around here, I'll use like 2 to 7 drops on my birds, just depending on their size. Like on my Morans, I'll use more like 7 to 9 drops. On my Bantams, I'll use something like 3 to 4 drops depending on their size. And of course, you're still going to need to clean out and treat the coop. Products like 7 Dust are effective around the coop. Some people like to make a permethrin solution and spray that around the nesting boxes in the coop as well. Be careful with permethrin because it's actually really toxic. It's a neurotoxin for cats. I used to be one of those people that was really mindful about the use of these anti-parasitic drugs, and I'm really mindful about like parasite resistance to these drugs, and I am still mindful about these things, but also having the experience that I do with both intestinal parasites and mites in my chickens, I now treat at least twice a year preventatively all of my birds for both mites and lice, no matter what. To help prevent parasite resistance, it is a good idea to like switch up the products that you're using. So maybe use Electra PSP at one point in the year, and maybe like a Safeguard to treat for the worms, and then ivermectin another point in the year. Honestly though, I'm not totally convinced that like every bird at some point in their life just has some bug living on or in them. I don't even know, man. My birds have access to sunlight, dust bags. Every once in a while I'll treat with like oil of garlic, oil of oregano, apple cider vinegar. Like I'll supplement with things periodically, and they still get these parasites like unbeknownst to me. And really, it's all of the factors that I can't control. It's the wild birds, it's the mice that come through, and they just drop these things off. So anyways, I'm exposing myself to say that you're not a shitty chicken keeper if your chickens contract these parasites. It's just part of it. It's best to have an idea of what you'll do to treat when they come up.